it isn't great right now. I think it's fair to say at Goodison Park, Everton sitting 19th in the Premier League. Big defeat at West Ham, which cost Frank Lampard his job. Sean Dyche has been linked for a number of weeks, some might even say a number of months. He's the man I think Everton fans wanted. It's the man they've got, although it looked like Bielsa could have snuck into the role a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's the right choice. Let's welcome in Thomas Robertson from the Toffee Blues podcast. Thomas, before we get into the will he save them, will he keep them, potential incomings at the club as well, right man, are you happy with Sean Dyche? Were you thinking anyone else?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we've got the right man. I think as soon as Lampard was sacked, it seemed like the most sensible approach. But as we've known with our owner over the past 7 years or so, he doesn't always take the most sensible approach. And it was clear that the owner was maybe more keen on Bielsa, but his proposal to take over the under-21s until the end of this season was obviously completely unfeasible in our position, and probably in any other club's position as well, to be honest. But I think Dyche makes the most sense. I'm very happy with the appointment and looking forward to seeing how he does. Yeah,
look, Sean Dyche comes with sort of a proven track record. He's sort of, I thought, worked wonders with Burnley with his hands tied behind his back and just bringing up Championship players and even a couple of League One players and turning them into sort of good standard Premier League pros. And he must look at your squad of players, and look, it's not the strongest, but he'll look at Conor Cody and Tarkowski that he's worked with and that midfield of Onana and Drissage and think, there's a bit to work here with. Like, I'm not coming into the worst squad in the Premier League. I can work with these guys.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely quality in the squad that, for one reason or another, the previous manager wasn't able to get out of them. But we know that there is some ability in the squad. I'm not saying that I think we have a squad to compete further up the table. I think we are. Well, I think the past couple of performances have put us in this position, but I don't think it fully reflects the squad. And as you mentioned there, he basically worked at Burnley on a shoestring budget, and that might not necessarily change here because of the financial fair play problems we've had. But there's definitely quality in the squad, and definitely more than he had at his Burnley side. Yeah,
it's not going to be easy, is it? I mean, he's going to have to get going immediately. Arsenal up first, then it's the Merseyside derby, then a big game against Leeds. Some will say it's almost a free hit against Arsenal and Liverpool. It's never that when you're down there, right? You need to pick up points straight away, don't you? And Arsenal, straight away, you're hoping for a new manager bounce, right? That's what they say. You're hoping for that to happen immediately.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the Arsenal match will be very tricky for us, the position they're in. But I don't think a Merseyside derby can ever be seen as a free hit, unfortunately, for Dyche. But yeah, they're going to be two very tricky fixtures, and probably not the two that he'd want to come into. But then, as you mentioned, we have a run of Leeds, Villa, Nottingham Forest, Brentford, who. I mean, of course, Brentford and Villa seem to be doing well now, but Leeds and Forest are teams that we have to be taking points off. So I think it's a very tricky start, but then the most important run of fixtures definitely comes straight after that.
Yeah, Anthony Gordon out of the club. I'll ask you more about that in a minute. But it looks like you could be going for Conor Gallagher. Looks like Everton have submitted a bid for the Chelsea youngster. He almost seems perfect for Everton in terms of just being busy. Like, he's everywhere. When I watch him for Chelsea, especially recently against Liverpool, he seems to almost be in 4 or 5 different positions. And I feel like if that's the kind of player you're going to get into the club, and we know, look, the signings haven't worked for the last few years, that seems like one that could work.
Yeah, he's definitely a player that would add dynamism to the midfield, absolutely. And I think, after he left Palace on that loan spell, 45 million, if someone paid that, I think it would have made a lot more sense. Yeah. It seems like a lot of money now. I mean, he's absolutely a player I'd want to have in the squad. Clearly, Dyche has greenlit that move straight away, so he's clearly keen on him as well. But, we're yet to see if the player would come anyway. He wants to seemingly go to clubs competing for European football or already in European football. So absolutely, Conor Gallagher is the kind of player I'd love to see, but I'm not sure how likely that deal is of getting over the line. Yeah,
what do you make of the Anthony Gordon exit? He's come out and said all the right things, right? Obviously he holds Everton deep in his heart, etc., etc. But what would you make of the way he forced his way out of the club? It's something we see from players nowadays. It's not just him, and I know people will start to kind of back the ball at him and saying, look what he's done. Everyone seems to do it nowadays to get out of a club.
Yeah, I think we can all admit now that Gordon's head it definitely turned in the first half of the season. We know there was a lot of interest in him in the summer, and although we kind of wanted to put that behind us, see what how he could perform this season, because he's never had contributed many goals or assists to his game, and look, I think clearly his head wasn't in it. We don't want players here who don't want to be here, essentially. And I think once that Newcastle move came along, I think the club saw it as a good opportunity to bring in, desperately needed funds to give to Sean Dyche in, well, what is it, less than 48 hours now, so he's not got much time. But I think the deal just kind of made sense for everyone in the end, and I'm not too disappointed to see him go, especially based on that high fee.
Sean Dyche, as a manager, in terms of the qualities needed now for Everton, and look, it's to beat the drop, right? That's what he's going to be tasked with. When you think of his qualities, what do you think he brings to the table? He's been quite defensive, saying, Burnley just didn't play one way. Very reminiscent of Sam Allardyce at Bolton. Like, we do play good football. If I'm given good footballers, would you make of Sean as a manager?
I think he's a fantastic manager. I think if you're not saying that points are more important than playing attractive or playing properly, as it's been said, then you're absolutely delusional. We need points on the board. I'm happy with whatever approach that he uses to get there, and I think that I do think Sean Dyche's Burnley side were very misinterpreted. The team definitely lacked quality in it, and as we've mentioned, they definitely lacked the funding to improve that. So with better players, let's see what he's capable of, but I'm more than happy for him to replicate that approach if it means we're not going to get relegated this season.
It's funny, speaking to Everton fans a couple of weeks ago, it almost was doom and gloom. It almost felt like, okay, we're going to the Championship, it's done, we'll see you next season. Now, just in the last sort of 4 or 5 hours, this is, I guess, what Sean Dyche brings, right? Everyone's now really optimistic. Like, he's gonna make us be a lot harder to beat. He can maybe get a tune out of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Like, everyone now feels like this is finally a green tick for Farhad Moshiri, right? So many things he's done wrong. This is the one thing he's done right over the years.
I'm not too sure I'd agree with that, because I think he was very keen on bringing Bielsa in, which from the outside it seems like that move was never going to make sense. He's obviously going to need time with the players, and we didn't have a squad to match it. And when Bielsa made this kind of an offer that they couldn't accept, you can't be paying backroom staff $9 million for 6 months for a manager to manage the under-21s.
Wow.
And I think if that wasn't the kind of if that wasn't such an outrageous offer, then maybe we'd be sitting here and Marcelo Bielsa would be the manager, and we'd all be thinking, look, Moshiri's had another disaster. So I'm not going to put this on the owner. I still think massive changes need to be made at the club, and potentially for him to sell the club. But I'm happy Dyche is in, but I wouldn't put too much of that on the owner. And there's still plenty of doom and gloom around.
No, that there is. Thomas, final one. If you don't bring anything in this January transfer window, again, you are being linked with a couple of players, and Sean Dyche would have told the board that he does need to bring in. But if you don't, and this is what you have until the end of the season, is it enough to stay up?
Well, that's a very tricky question, because I think it's very hard to conceive that we won't bring in transfers in the next couple of days. We have the quality to stay up already, but it's going to be a lot more difficult if we don't manage to get anyone over the line in the next 48 hours. Thomas,
appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Thomas Robertson there from the Toffee Blues podcast. Sean Dyche, first game in charge, as you heard there, is this Saturday. It's live on TalkSport as well. Everton won't be easy. Arsenal coming to Goodison Park. The lunchtime kickoff 12:30. Reshman Chowdhury, Sam Vatterface, and former England defender Mickey Gray on commentary duties for that one.